World War II stands as the most devastating conflict in human history. From 1939 to 1945, this global war reshaped nations, destroyed cities, and claimed over 70 million lives. On September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany launched a surprise invasion of Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. This attack, using the tactic of blitzkrieg, combined fast-moving tanks, infantry, and air support to overwhelm Polish defenses. The invasion began with German forces crossing the border from multiple directions. Polish cities were quickly targeted, and the outdated Polish army struggled to respond to the rapid mechanized assault. Blitzkrieg tactics involved concentrated armored units breaking through weak points, followed by infantry to secure the area. This lightning war devastated Poland in just 35 days, leading to its partition between Germany and the Soviet Union. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919 to end World War I, imposed harsh penalties on Germany. It forced the nation to pay massive reparations, cede territories, and limit its military, creating widespread resentment and economic hardship that Adolf Hitler exploited to rise to power. Hitler, leader of the Nazi Party, capitalized on this discontent. His ideology of Aryan supremacy and the need for Lebensraum, or living space, justified aggressive expansion and the elimination of those deemed inferior, including Jews and other minorities. Under Hitler's command, German forces employed blitzkrieg tactics, lightning-fast armored assaults combined with air support to rapidly overrun neighboring countries. By 1940, Germany had annexed Austria, occupied Czechoslovakia, and invaded Poland, marking the start of World War II. Nazi rallies, held in massive stadiums, rallied support through propaganda and displays of power, symbolized by swastika banners and uniformed crowds that demonstrated the regime's control and ideological fervor. Through a series of aggressive campaigns, Hitler's army expanded across Europe. By 1942, Nazi Germany controlled vast territories, including much of Western Europe, implementing occupation policies that suppressed resistance and advanced their ideological goals. World War II divided the world into two main factions, the Allied powers and the Axis powers. The Allied powers included the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, along with France, China, and Canada. These nations opposed the aggression of the Axis powers, which were led by Germany, Italy, and Japan, with support from Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria. As more countries joined the fight, the conflict grew increasingly horrific. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. This naval base was home to much of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. The attack destroyed numerous ships and drew the United States into World War II. Japanese planes bombed the harbor, targeting battleships and aircraft. The attack caused massive damage and loss of life. The aftermath showed wrecked ships and immediate news coverage of the event. The attack killed over 2,400 Americans and damaged or destroyed 19 ships. It united the nation and led to U.S. entry into the war. According to a 2024 Naval History Conference, Japan's code-breaking failures made the attack possible. The Eastern Front was the deadliest theater of World War II, where Nazi Germany clashed with the Soviet Union in a brutal struggle that lasted from 1941 to 1945. In June 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history, aiming to conquer the Soviet Union. Millions of troops and thousands of tanks poured across the border. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought from 1942 to 1943, became a turning point. German forces advanced into the city, but were surrounded by Soviet troops in a brutal urban warfare that cost over 2 million lives. Soldiers on both sides faced unimaginable hardships. Freezing temperatures, scarce supplies, and relentless combat created a hellish environment where survival was uncertain. The Eastern Front saw the highest casualties of any theater, with over 30 million dead. Its strategic importance was immense. It drained Germany's resources and ultimately led to their defeat, shaping the post-war world. World War II was not just a military conflict, but the greatest test of humanity. The Holocaust stands as a horrific chapter where millions were systematically murdered in Nazi concentration camps. Over 6 million Jews, along with millions of others, including Romani people, disabled individuals, and political dissidents, were victims of this genocide. Their faces tell stories of unimaginable suffering and loss. The camps like Auschwitz-Birkenau became symbols of industrialized death, where trains delivered victims to their fate under the guise of forced labor or extermination. Recent excavations at Sobibor camp have uncovered over 1,000 artifacts, including victim letters that provide heartbreaking personal accounts of the horrors endured. The Holocaust remains a permanent stain on human history, reminding us of the dangers of hatred and the importance of standing against injustice. The Pacific Theater was a vast and brutal arena where American forces employed an island-hopping strategy to advance toward Japan. This campaign involved bypassing heavily fortified islands and seizing strategic ones instead. American forces leapfrogged from island to island, starting with places like Tarawa and Saipan. Each island provided airfields and naval bases to support the next advance, cutting off Japanese supply lines. Iwo Jima was a critical battle where American Marines faced fierce resistance on volcanic terrain. The island's airfields were vital for bombing Japan, but Japanese defenders fought from tunnels and caves in a brutal 36-day siege. Okinawa was the bloodiest battle of the Pacific, lasting 82 days. American forces landed on the beaches and fought through Japanese defenses, including the Shuri Line. The battle foreshadowed the invasion of Japan itself. Fighting in the Pacific presented unique challenges. Tropical conditions caused heat exhaustion, while dense jungles made movement difficult and ambushes common. Diseases like malaria weakened troops, and Japanese tactics like kamikaze suicide attacks created constant danger. Both American and Japanese forces showed incredible determination. American troops endured amphibious landings and sustained combat, while Japanese defenders fought with fanatical resolve, often to the last man, reflecting their code of Bushido honor. On August 6, 1945, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb, named Little Boy, on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The explosion created a massive mushroom cloud, instantly destroying much of the city. 3 days later, on August 9th, the second bomb, Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki, causing similar devastation with its enormous explosion. The bombings caused immediate destruction, leveling entire neighborhoods. Aerial photographs captured the stark contrast between the cities before and after the explosions, showing how the blasts flattened buildings and infrastructure. Beyond the immediate destruction, the atomic bombs released deadly radiation that caused long-term health problems. Survivors suffered from cancers, leukemia, and other radiation-induced illnesses. Studies show that over 200,000 deaths have been attributed to the bombings, including those from radiation exposure in the years that followed. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain a stark reminder of the devastating power of nuclear weapons and their enduring impact on humanity. The Nuremberg trials, held from 1945 to 1946, were a series of military tribunals that prosecuted prominent members of the Nazi regime for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and other offenses committed during World War II. The trials took place in the German city of Nuremberg, in a courthouse that had been used by the Nazis themselves. More than 200 defendants faced charges, including high-ranking officials, military leaders, and industrialists who had supported the regime. The prosecution presented evidence of atrocities, including the systematic murder of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust and other genocidal acts. The trials were broadcast globally, ensuring the world witnessed the horrors of Nazi crimes. One of the most significant outcomes was establishing the principle of individual accountability. For the first time in history, leaders were held personally responsible for their actions, even if they claimed they were following orders. This marked a turning point in international law. The trials resulted in 12 death sentences, 90 life imprisonments, and numerous shorter terms. They also led to the creation of the Nuremberg Principles, which formed the foundation for modern international criminal law. These principles emphasize that certain acts, such as genocide and crimes against humanity, are punishable under international law, regardless of domestic laws. The Nuremberg trials set a precedent that continues to influence tribunals today, including those for Rwanda and Yugoslavia. The United Nations was founded on October 24th, 1945, in San Francisco as the successor to the failed League of Nations. 50 nations signed the UN Charter, establishing a stronger framework for international cooperation. The League of Nations, created after World War I, aimed to prevent future wars but failed due to several key weaknesses. It lacked the power to enforce decisions, and major powers like the United States never joined. Key lessons from the League's failure included the need for binding enforcement mechanisms, universal membership, and effective sanctions against aggressors. The UN addressed these by giving the Security Council authority to impose measures. The UN's primary role is to promote international cooperation and prevent conflicts through diplomacy, peacekeeping missions, and humanitarian efforts. It serves as a forum for dialogue among nations. Today, the UN addresses global challenges, including poverty, climate change, and human rights, through initiatives like the Sustainable Development Goals, demonstrating its evolution beyond the League's limitations. The devastation of World War II reminds us that peace is humanity's greatest achievement. In the aftermath of such destruction, we see the value of harmony and unity. Peace allows children to play freely, grow, and build a better future without the shadows of conflict. Around the world, nations that embrace peace create stronger, more prosperous societies. Unity among diverse people fosters understanding and prevents the divisions that lead to war. Let us release the dove of peace, committing to resolve conflicts through dialogue, not destruction. World War II's lessons endure. Peace is the greatest strength, and war is never the solution. World War II saw unprecedented technological advancements that transformed warfare and continue to shape modern technology. One of the most crucial innovations was radar, which allowed early detection of enemy aircraft from miles away. Radar stations played a decisive role in the Battle of Britain, enabling the Royal Air Force to intercept German bombers before they reached their targets. Combined with anti-aircraft artillery and barrage balloons, radar systems formed layered defenses that protected cities from aerial bombardment. Another breakthrough was jet engine technology, which powered aircraft to unprecedented speeds and altitudes. The Messerschmitt Me 262, Germany's first operational jet fighter, could reach speeds over 500 miles per hour, far outpacing Allied propeller-driven planes. The war accelerated the development of early computing machines, which performed complex calculations for ballistics, cryptography, and logistics. The Enigma cipher machine was a sophisticated encryption device used by Nazi Germany. British and American mathematicians, using early computers like the Colossus, cracked these codes, providing crucial intelligence. These wartime innovations not only helped win the war, but also laid the groundwork for today's technologies, from commercial jet travel to global positioning systems and artificial intelligence. World War II ended in 1945, but the alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union quickly unraveled. Ideological differences between capitalism and communism, combined with competing geopolitical interests, led to the Cold War, a period of tension that lasted nearly 50 years. At the heart of the Cold War were fundamental ideological differences. The United States championed democracy and capitalism, while the Soviet Union promoted communism and state control. These opposing systems created mutual suspicion and fear of each other's expansion. Geopolitically, the Cold War divided Europe into two spheres of influence. The Iron Curtain symbolized the boundary between Western democracies and Eastern communist states. Germany was split into occupation zones, with the Western zones forming West Germany and the Eastern zone becoming East Germany. To counter the Soviet threat, Western nations formed NATO in 1949 for collective defense. The Soviet Union responded with the Warsaw Pact in 1955, creating a military alliance among communist countries. This divided Europe into opposing blocs. Tensions escalated globally through proxy conflicts like the Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. The threat of nuclear annihilation loomed large, as both superpowers amassed weapons of mass destruction. The arms race intensified the rivalry. Both nations invested heavily in nuclear arsenals and military technology. The United States and Soviet Union engaged in an expensive competition that drained resources and heightened the risk of accidental war. The Cold War was characterized by this ideological standoff between superpowers, with the world divided into spheres of influence. It shaped international relations for decades until the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991. World War II inflicted enormous economic damage on the global economy. The total cost of the war reached approximately $4 trillion when adjusted for inflation. This massive expenditure led to widespread devastation, destroying factories and infrastructure across Europe and Asia, disrupting international trade, and causing severe inflation and unemployment in many countries. The physical destruction was immense, as seen in this comparison of a European beach during and after the war. Entire cities lay in ruins, transportation systems were crippled, and agricultural production plummeted, leaving millions homeless and economies in shambles. Recovery would require unprecedented international cooperation and financial aid. The Marshall Plan, launched in 1948, became the cornerstone of European recovery. This American initiative provided $13 billion in economic aid over 4 years to rebuild infrastructure, stabilize currencies, and promote industrial growth across Western Europe. The aid was distributed across 16 European countries, as shown in this map. Britain, France, and Italy received the largest shares, totaling billions of dollars each. This financial lifeline not only rebuilt physical infrastructure, but also prevented economic collapse and supported democratic governments in Western Europe. World War II exacted a tremendous human toll. Beyond the battlefield casualties, millions of survivors grappled with psychological trauma that lasted decades. Personal stories reveal the depth of suffering. Women who endured occupation and loss carried emotional wounds that shaped their lives. Families mourned loved ones, creating legacies of grief that echoed through generations. Veterans faced invisible wounds, PTSD, depression, and mental health challenges that continue to affect communities today. Children were displaced, witnessing horrors that robbed them of innocence and stability. Communities rebuilt amidst remembrance, honoring sacrifices through memorials and shared stories. The physical destruction mirrored the emotional devastation, leaving scars on landscapes and souls alike. Individuals like Anne Frank represent the countless lives cut short, their voices preserved in diaries and memories. Understanding the human cost fosters empathy and ensures we remember the lessons of war to prevent future tragedies. Today, World War II is interpreted through modern lenses, with digital archives and AI tools making historical narratives more accessible than ever. These technologies help democratize access to World War II stories, allowing people worldwide to explore primary sources and survivor accounts. However, the rise of misinformation poses significant dangers, spreading false narratives about the war. Fact-checking remains crucial to preserve historical accuracy and prevent the distortion of this pivotal event. World War II profoundly reshaped international relations, leading to the formation of global institutions and alliances that continue to influence world security today. One of the most significant outcomes was the creation of NATO in 1949, a military alliance designed to counter Soviet expansion and ensure collective defense among Western nations. NATO's organizational structure, including Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, provides a framework for joint military operations and rapid response to threats. The war's aftermath led to the Cold War, with NATO opposing the Warsaw Pact, creating a bipolar world order that influenced global politics for decades. Beyond NATO, various international alliances continue to maintain global security, reflecting the lessons of cooperation learned from World War II. The war's lessons on the dangers of nationalism and totalitarianism remain relevant today, reminding us of the importance of ethical warfare and international cooperation to prevent future conflicts. World War II commemorations and memorials serve as vital reminders of the immense sacrifices made during the war. These sites honor the millions who fought and died, ensuring their stories endure for future generations. Cemeteries like those in Normandy preserve the resting places of Allied soldiers, with rows of white crosses symbolizing the human cost of freedom. These sacred grounds remind us of the personal stories behind the statistics. International memorials, such as those in Hiroshima, commemorate the atomic bombings and advocate for peace. These sites educate visitors about the devastating impact of nuclear warfare and the importance of preventing future conflicts. Museums play a crucial role in preserving World War II history through artifacts, documents, and interactive exhibits. Institutions like the Imperial War Museum educate millions annually about the war's complexities and consequences. Detailed exhibits in museums recreate the wartime experience, showing uniforms, weapons, and personal items. These displays help visitors understand the perspectives of all sides involved in the conflict. Annual commemorations, including ceremonies with wreaths and music, honor the veterans and keep the memory of World War II alive. These events foster reflection and ensure the lessons of the war are passed to new generations. By visiting these memorials and supporting educational institutions, we honor the sacrifices of the past and work toward a more peaceful future. As we look to the future, World War II's legacy continues to shape our world. The devastation of that conflict teaches us the critical importance of continued education about its causes and consequences. We must remain vigilant in preventing future conflicts by learning from history's mistakes. The global community must work together to address threats to peace. Building a more peaceful world requires global cooperation and mutual understanding. The interconnectedness of nations demands shared responsibility for humanity's future. World War II's enduring lessons remind us that peace is not guaranteed. It requires constant effort, empathy, and commitment from all people everywhere.